Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Juneteenth, everybody.
Oh, happy Juneteenth to you too.
It's Kevin Ely here. I'm not Paul Fontaine, and this is Jeremy Finestone. He is not Jeff Hawkins, but we are your humble replacements this week, as both of them are handling more important matters right now. Paul is taking care of young Emily, who just had surgery this week, and we're all sending her best wishes and prayers that Emily is feeling better every day. And we're glad that Paul's able to spend some time with her. And Jeff Hawkins is also spending time on more important matters, namely playing poker in Las Vegas.
Best wishes to him too.
Best wishes to him as well on his recovery and or victory.
As a result, you get two perfectly cromulent substitutes.
It's cromulent, yes. Exactly. We're going to have a perfectly cromulent evening here on the Dynamite Show.
Sure.
Jeremy,
not
good
a
to see you.
cromulent episode though.
No, it was an interesting episode. I went so fast from like taking notes. I'm not used to taking as thorough notes. I'm not as practiced as Paul at it, but
right.
So I almost didn't even formulate my takeaways yet. So we're coming in pretty cold, I guess, or pretty not cold, but we have not like really pre-discussed much. Yeah, this is going to be a pretty loosey-goosey conversation, but that's fine. Anything going on in the world of AEW or anything like that you want to chat about before we get going on the show?
I feel like for the first time, a phase of AEW feels like it's heading in the right direction. And there's like momentum. There are top baby faces that are getting reactions like baby faces. There are angles that are starting to heat up. There are directions that, while the warning flags are still there, that we talk about every week. I feel a sense of optimism, at least the week to week is getting more and more enjoyable. And for a while, I've just thought this has been a pay-per-view company. And, you know, the Rampage and the Collision are perfectly disposable weekend shows. You can pick them up, you can watch them, you cannot watch them, doesn't matter. And as long as Dynamite, you know, is must see, you've got a good product. And I feel like Dynamite has become more must see than it has in the past.
I would agree with that. I'm feeling that same way about Dynamite, of its building momentum, and it feels like more the key show. In the same way, I've become much less attached. I used to be pretty diehard about keeping up with everything, partially because when I was doing a weekly show about it, it was my alleged job to do that. But since then, it's become, like you said, pretty disposable. But I'm still always looking to see what should I go. But I very rarely sit through an entire episode of Collision or Rampage anymore. I usually pick and choose, what I'm going to go seek out, what sounded good, and go find it. But I'm always sitting through Dynamite. It's still my hump day tradition, but that made me nervous though when I started thinking about that, because that's what happened to me, late 2010s around WWE, when it was the only game in town, at least in America. And I started realizing, I don't miss it when I don't watch it. And there's enough social media posts and things like that. Like right now, I don't watch WWE at all, but I'm still pretty up to date on everything just because I follow those accounts on Twitter, and I can watch pretty much everything that way. And I was getting pretty nervous that that's what was happening with AEW for a while. But I feel the same, like the last, probably since Double or Nothing, like you said, feels like there's a little bit of head of steam building, which is good timing because you're going into the summer, going into All In. And there seems to be momentum building, but also is interesting because I don't know exactly where the momentum's going in terms of who's going to be the big, we have a main event coming up in a couple of weeks. I think I know who might win, but like I could see it going either way. It's fun. It's fun to feel like there's a head of steam building, yet not knowing exactly where the destination is.
There's a lot of intriguing possibilities with a lot of the matchups they've teased over the next couple of weeks. And you're not even entirely sure you're going to get all of those matchups that they teased. But what you were saying earlier, it's not hate watching that's going to get AEW to think. It's the apathy. It's the I don't even care enough to care kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you were treading into that territory for a while in early 2024. And when people talk about the ratings and the market shares of viewership, it just stayed in the same place because there wasn't anything attracting new viewers. And, the people were just kind of there. That was basically feels like the baseline. The 700,000 for Wednesday night, the 500,000, 400,000 for the weekend. Like, what the floor is now. And I feel like you're not going to get a response in viewership right away for what they're doing. But if you stay this course going into All In, you have a real opportunity to change the momentum and the perception of being a lesser number 2 company and just a company that is confident in doing its own thing, which is what it should be doing.
That's exactly where they should be. Tony Khan talked a lot back in the day and has been talking lately again about being a challenger brand and comparing themselves to Pepsi. And, an article just came out a week or two ago about how Pepsi's not even the number 2 soda in the market anymore. It's now Dr. Pepper. And I was like, AEW should try to be the Dr. Pepper, because what Dr. Pepper doesn't do is go out there and try to beat Coke. Right. Like, I'm sure in their boardrooms, they're like, how do we get number 1? But they're not out there comparing themselves and saying, hey, it's between the 2 of us. And clearly one of them is superior to the other in the market share. Dr. Pepper's out there doing its own thing. I know people who only drink Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper has a lot of new exciting flavors. Like, they should, all this talk about trying to compete and wrestling war and all that stuff. I wish they would just be like, you know what? The market's big enough. We are competing for dollars. We're competing for rights fees, that kind of thing. Using, the talent obviously is,
we're hungry to be a bigger company.
Hungry to be a bigger company and be competitive.
But the path to that is not just going one-on-one head first against the number 1. It is finding ways to create your own identity. Because the entire consensus is we want AEW to be something different than WWE. When you take the WWE creatives and you bring them into AEW, you are not taking the best of WWE. You are taking that WWE formula and just putting more of it into the AEW formula. And so the identity of AEW has changed so much from the last 5 years that if you watch that first episode and you see the talent that's there, and then you see it now, you see what it morphed into, but you also see how the company shaped itself around it.
Yeah. Yeah. There were some little WWE-isms that were pretty small that I noticed. Well, I'll try to point them out as we go, but
yeah, sure.
By and large, this felt like an AEW show. Not too many drama skits in the back. The backstage stuff was kept to a minimum. There were, it was match, and the matches were usually building up other matches. They very clearly have their sights on Forbidden Door right now. Yes. But they're planted some interesting seeds tonight that I think was interesting.
There were some interesting seeds, and there were some things that just were not necessary. That they were just like, they dropped it in the middle of angles that were humming, and they were just doing great. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait, we got to shoehorn this other stuff in there, and we'll get to that. But that was like, it was a little too much. Like, you have 5 hours of programming, and if Dynamite is your A show and you have to get everything on there, what are the other ones for? Like, there's legitimately
that hits the nail on the head. Is like, they have the 5 hours of programming, but they don't act like it. They act like they have the 2 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes. And then the rest of it is just sort of like, hey, if you're still interested, here's some more.
Yeah. So I gotta give a shout out to Jeff Hawkins. He wanted this mentioned. Credit to the opening match before the show ever started. Yeah. They got that crowd hot. That crowd is ready to go. Do you know what that opening match was?
I do. And it's malpractice that it was not on Dynamite. Nay,
could
even
be saved for Rampage. They might have.
Maybe they're saving it for Wembley. I don't know.
It could be. We had Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal versus the Outrunners.
Oh my God.
And the Outrunners have become quietly my favorite little team.
Yeah.
Did you watch Collision this past weekend?
I did not watch the show, but I did see their debut as
the new boys of Dalton Castle.
The new boys of Dalton Castle, which is fantastic.
Magnificent.
Yes.
They got their asses kicked. They got jobbed out like
That's
crazy.
right.
But I am here for it.
That's all right.
This is the kind of like creative pairing that they should be doing more of.
Yes. Yes. We need more outrunners always. Anybody who listened to us on the Boom, that was a rephrase or a refrain regularly. All more outrunners.
All right. 10 minutes.
Someday.
You want to get to the start of this show?
Yeah, let's get to the show. All right. So as promised, they started with MJF immediately coming to the ring and promised MJF versus Rush commercial free, which made me think it was going to be very long, but did not seem as long as I expected. It felt like a normal intro match. They just showed you the commercials or showed you what would happen during the commercials without going to the picture-in-picture. So interesting. MJF gets 2 intros from Justin Roberts for some reason. Let's see. MJF looked pretty good. Rush comes out.
Big match, right?
Do what?
It had a big match fight feel.
It did have a big fight, a little bit of a big fight feel out of the gate. They both, they did a good job to me of being like, hey, we hate each other, but this is still a match. We're not going to it's not a blood feud quite yet. So they're still trying, they still worked a match. It wasn't a lot of headlocks or anything, but dude, these guys are dropping each other's on their heads over and over again.
It was a tale of two matches, man. The first half of that match, all the way through when Rush did his first bull rush and MJF pulled himself out of the way. That was all just brawling and just beating each other up. And then after that, it turned into, a work rate match. They were doing the suplexes and the beatdowns. They took everything outside, used the rope on MJF. Yep. There was a blood capsule in the very beginning of the match, which seemed entirely unnecessary, given that MJF actually legitimately got busted up later on in the match. These two beat the shit out of each other, Kevin.
They did.
They absolutely laid it into each other. And it was at a point where it was like, do they legitimately not like each other, or are they out there to prove something? And I felt like it was the latter. They were out there to prove something. And, I feel like they don't do enough with Rush, especially when you see matches like this, because MJF was doing his MJF shtick through the entire match. It just felt like the MJF show, but Rush was the star of the match. He absolutely made the most of his minutes, and every time he was in control of the match, the camera followed him. The camera was magnetized to him in a lot of ways. And I don't think the wrong guy won, but I do think the wrong guy got the better part of this than what they intended.
I think that's fair.
MJF was fine. He, when I was wondering if he was a babyface or a tweener or whatever, and then, there was a point where Tony Schiavone just said MJF has a ton of heart, and the crowd just started chanting for him, and then he hit the brainbuster for the win, and we're like, well, this guy is a babyface. There's no question about it whatsoever. And the topping on the ice cream sundae was, Rush giving him the little the rub on the crown. They were both real happy with that match, and I can't say that anyone probably upset after watching that one.
Yeah, I like last week when they first started building to these two guys, I thought, oh my gosh, who's mad at MJF? Is this over that Disney World thing? Because I thought Rush was just gonna almost take liberties. I mean, Rush always gets right up to that line. And by the time this match finished, I was like, no, this is exactly what MJF wanted to do. He wanted to come out and have the hardest hitting match he could. This is his first match back in 6 months.
First match 2024.
Yeah, first match 2024.
The World's End match was his last match.
Yeah.
Right.
And he clearly missed it because he just took it all, man. And so, they both seemed really happy. Then we had been talking in the past about, whether or not the Kingdom will still rear its ugly head, if this devil storyline, all that stuff, is it put to bed? Is it just in hiding right now until it can come back stronger? So after this match, I was like, well, I wonder if something's going to happen here, because it seems like they wouldn't just do the match and then just move on. And sure enough, an evil faction comes on the screen to challenge MJF, but it's not the Undisputed Kingdom. It was the Cage of Agony,
with their newest member
all over this show, with their newest member, Hechicero, which is bizarre. This dude's awesome, but I don't know if this is the faction to put him with. Brian Cage as his mouthpiece.
Up every so often, at least he's got a couple of people behind him that he can
That's true.
Have a little legitimacy. With these CMLL guys, they just show up. They don't have anyone like around with them, and then they get their asses kicked.
Yeah,
and attacking. So I get it.
I guess Brian Cage as your mouthpiece is better than no mouthpiece at all, but it's just an odd thing. And then they just sort of announced, this was another trend of the night, was just odd announcements of matches. So he says, hey, Hechicero's got you at Forbidden Door, as if it's like, that kind of Tony Khan booking where it's just like, you don't have to agree to the match.
Memo.
It just
like,
happens.
Oh, by the way,
yeah. By the way, I got the memo. The email came while you were in the ring, which I think is a fun match. That should be a pretty interesting match. But
that guy's getting a world tour, by the way, Hechicero. He's gonna be wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. at CMLL this weekend.
Oh,
so that's the match everyone was kind of like, oh, I want to see Sabre and Hechicero. They're pulling that one off on Saturday night, and I think you can watch it on the YouTube. I don't know if it's free or whatever, but CMLL got that match made, so good for them.
That sounds fantastic. I want to see Hechicero running through. I mean, just doing the
he's the tour. World Tour guy of 2024.
Yeah, just have him. Everybody needs a match with Hechicero this year.
Sure.
Not much more to add about that. Cage of Agony.
Do you think Hechicero and MJF is going to be the standard opening match of the show for Forbidden Door?
That's a good question.
Likes to be the first guy or the last guy on the show.
That's true. And, I could see him being the first guy, getting in, getting out.
Get in, get out.
And I totally could see that being the first match. And that's great. It'll be a good kickoff match. Forbidden Door is really interesting, but we'll run that down as we get a little further at the end. We'll go through over the whole card. So then we talked about they promoted one of the multiple tournament qualifying scenarios that they have running right now simultaneously, which is recapping who is in the TNT ladder match so far. Jack Perry, Mark Briscoe, Takeshita, and Jack Perry. No, wait. I said that twice. Dante Martin.
Dante Martin, yeah.
Perry, Briscoe, Takeshita, and Dante Martin already in. We didn't get anybody new in tonight, but they did just a wild kind of like throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall plugging of this match by then going to trying to recapture lightning in a bottle with Mark Briscoe cutting a promo with his conglomeration of Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and now Dante Martin, who has the new nickname, Hey, You Get Off My Cloud, Dante Martin, as coined by Mark Briscoe. Last week, I don't know if you saw it, but Mark Briscoe cut a promo that was just magic and just had just everybody falling in love with him all over again, laughing, getting fired up, everyone just really the kind of thing that makes you get on TV more, basically.
It was authentic.
And that's what it was authentically off the hook.
Yes.
This was one of those things where it was like if you forgot to roll tape on the magic and then said, "Oh, that's fine. Let's just do it again."
Do what you did last week, but
do what you did last week, and it just wasn't there.
Everybody was just trying to recreate their reactions. Kyle O'Reilly was trying to do his little thing.
A little over the top.
Martin was trying to do the Willow reaction of just being like, "Oh wow," and it just felt like they were trying too hard.
They were all trying too hard. Yeah,
and it's fine. I'm sure that there are people that can't get enough of the Briscoe out of control, I'm Gonzo from Muppets kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, but I want it to be. I need it to be Mark Briscoe's voice, not what the company wants him to say.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
that's two different voices. They've always been two different voices.
Yeah. Great moment though when Jack Perry just sort of strolls through the camera shot. And Mark
I
Briscoe,
swear that guy watches all the 90210 tapes of his dad. Like the smoldering look that he does. Like he's been looking in the mirror and trying to recreate the looks. And
he needs to be wearing the black.
Blueprint.
He needs to be wearing the black Ray-Ban Wayfarers.
Yeah,
like Dylan.
He's got the blueprint for it, and I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it.
But it was, you know, there was fun when Mark's just like, get your ass out of there, Perry.
So we have this promo. I have thoughts about it, but I'm going to let you cue up your thoughts about this contract signing.
So Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland face to face. Will Ospreay out first. Swerve comes out. Will takes the mic, points out that last week he removed Swerve's belt from his hands and put it over his own shoulders, and there was a bit of discussion about whether Will could shoulder the weight of two titles. And so Will points out that he once held 3 titles on 3 continents simultaneously. Swerve countered by saying that he's a 2-time champ, 1 in wrestling and 1 in entertainment, which is a little bit of a stretch, I think. But great line from Will. I did love this line. While you had a hit row, I had a hit list. That was a good line. It didn't miss. Yeah, that was good.
So he listed off his opponents: Omega, Okada, Takagi, Jericho. These all legitimately were names that he ran through in about a month before All In last year.
Right.
You know, like that happened from Forbidden Door, the G1 match, the night before at Rev Pro, and All In, and he took out all of those guys.
Yep.
And it was just like, I felt like the promo was over when he said that.
Yeah. And I don't remember if he explicitly pointed it out, but that he did win at Wembley and Swerve did not.
He did not mention it that way, no.
He talks about all the ways that he could beat Swerve, and then mentions if he were to use the Tiger Driver 91, and Swerve kind of got off in 2 different tracks where like Ospreay's doing his thing and Swerve's got his lines, and Swerve wasn't really responding to it anymore because he's still kind of going off in this thing, basically saying like, if I injure you, your career's over, and who's Will Ospreay without wrestling? But I can do other things. And I don't know if that's really what you want to hear from your world champion, but he was still charismatic here. I was still buying their confrontation. Then they get into sacrifice. And Swerve talks about all the sacrifices you have to make. I don't have friends. I don't have loved ones. I'm willing to sacrifice everything. To be this champion, you've got to sacrifice everything you love, including your wife, including your son. And so that gets from the crowd. And Will's like, don't make this personal, bruv. Nana interrupts them and just starts doing the hard sell for the show, for the pay-per-view. Nana says, he's just basically like, all this on pay-per-view.
Let's bring it back around.
Which I appreciated. Nana says,
wasn't too late tonight, because that was probably a good call.
Yeah, right. Nana calls out whose house. Will screams in the mic, my house, walks away. They play Elevation. You think the segment's over. Swerve stops, calls off the music, holds him up, and says, no, let's go ahead and make this personal. I thought he said, send my regards to Al and Harry. Is that the
I think the kid's name.
Okay.
Like the son's name.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure he mentioned the son's name, and he said the son.
And his wife, I forgot her name.
Alex Windsor is who he was.
Al, okay.
Alex
That's what
Windsor
I got confused.
Referring to.
The Al, yeah.
Which was the woman I believe Toni Storm wrestled this past weekend on Rampage.
She's pretty good.
She's very talented. Yes, she's very talented. I am a little concerned about the exposure that she's getting she needs a little bit more seasoning, because I think she can make it, but Toni is very interested in rushing out new women that might have potential without a real plan. And
And especially if he thinks it's, good for his relationship with one of his top stars to let his wife travel with him from time to time.
That is the wrestling business. As much as I think that is not the greatest reason, and people should be there on their own merits and talent, I cannot disagree that has been a motive for many in the past.
Yeah,
and she is very talented, and I just like to see people know that they have accomplished it on their own merits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we thought that like he crossed the line, and Will's like, oh, this is gonna cross the line, but apparently didn't cross the line because all he did was get in his face and then went to commercial.
No.
Anyway, your thoughts?
I thought Ospreay ate his fucking dinner in this promo.
Yeah.
I thought Swerve tried to have comebacks, but frankly speaking, this is a wrestling company, and I know inherently that Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world. And when Swerve tries to make the argument about anything other than being the best wrestler in the world, it is a dodge from what the conversation is.
Yeah.
And I think we know that the direction of this match is not going to end in Will's favor, at least right now. And that's fine. But if you're setting up the AEW World Champion to get destroyed in a promo like he did, whether he was confident that his words and his posture and everything that he was going to do and say was going to be enough, it just wasn't. When he said that Will Ospreay didn't know sacrifice, I don't know how many people listening here really know exactly the career that Will Ospreay has had in New Japan, and they're willfully looking past it because you just know this guy wrestled in a bunch of other places. This guy has sacrificed so much in his life for wrestling and going to Japan for the last 8 years that it's insane. And so the fact that they decided to make that the focal point of the promo was a little bit humorous to me, especially if we're going towards Forbidden Door and we're trying to illuminate the history and the future of New Japan. So willfully overlooking one of the biggest developments of the last 10 years with that company was a choice.
And real quick on that, even if they were just going by fictional history, just kayfabe history of Will Ospreay, part of Will Ospreay's story in New Japan was him literally knocking out his girlfriend and eliminating her from being his corner because she was a distraction.
Yeah.
This story has been told. and Will the character is willing to sacrifice whatever.
I will say that Paul in the Discord, he wasn't able to join and do a show tonight for the reasons we mentioned earlier, but he had a few observations and I picked up a couple. One of the things that he noticed that Swerve was playing off of Will's insecurities or trying to create insecurities with Will. He knows he's not as good of a wrestler as him. And so he's trying to create the doubt in his head that he can win the big one or whatever, or that he needs Callis's help. A lot of the second half of Swerve's promo was psychological, but because Will was so direct about his approach to what he was going to do to him, it did not come across as savvy or psychologically superior. It just seemed kind of like you're going to have to think about what he said and maybe come to the conclusion that, he's on to something. But I don't know if you're doing hot and fast right now, if that was the way to go in order to have two people on equal footing.
Yeah. It would have had more weight, I think, if they had actually sat Bryan Danielson out for a bit longer and sold his injury and told the story that he's lost his edge because he's afraid of what he can do.
Sure.
Which they kind of started to tell, but then Bryan Danielson just started wrestling again, and it's like, well, no big deal. One thing we kind of brushed over was that Will explicitly said he doesn't need Don Callis, which is one of the first even hints direct references of Will, of any sort of split between Will being with them. They conveniently cut back to Don watching on a screen, who looked very perturbed.
So was Trent.
Upset. Trent's hot. Trent's got his glasses on. He's upset. He does not approve.
Betrayed.
Yeah.
But Kyle Fletcher
is like, I don't know. I mean, I did base my entire look and haircut on this guy. I don't know if I need to bail on him yet. Yeah, so this is one of those little WWE-isms where they just sort of cut back to Don and the family, and instead of, I thought it would be like, you know, Renee or somebody, or Arcady or whatever her name is. I haven't learned her name yet. Coming back there and saying, "Hey Don, what'd you think of what Will said?" You know, and kind of provoking him a little bit. And him making a statement, but instead they did this little like internal private conversation where he's like, "Hey guys, don't worry about it. I know Will better than anybody." And they all walk off and Kyle's a little torn, but he had a match next, so he did get to think about it too long.
Yeah, his role in that match was definitely interesting as well.
Yeah, that match was
a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was hard to keep track of. I mean, I couldn't even track a lot.
This is the stereotypical, you want to know what the party match on the AEW Dynamite show was. This was in fact the party match, and it was the most fun party match that they've had in a while.
That was another little WWE-ism that that AEW does, but not as blatantly. And the Mark Briscoe, the Mark Briscoe in this match was an example of it, where something happens and it's like a hit. Like last week, they had a party match, and everyone was like, "That was the best match on the show." So this week they're like, rinse and repeat. Hey, Mark Briscoe, you go cut out a fiery promo, and we'll just add 2 guys to that, and it'll be even a better party. This match was probably just as fun as last time. It was a little more chaotic. I
will tell you, the addition of Zack Sabre Jr. to it made all the difference to me.
It didn't to me, because I liked seeing him. I loved that all the bad guys came out to Zach's music and he was presented as the top star. Interesting that Briscoe was the kind of the captain of the team, you know, getting his music and instead of Orange Cassidy, who's always like a go-to for entrances.
I think it's because they were in Virginia.
Oh, good point. Yeah. It's his country, or his part of the country. And also Cassidy's kind of on a, you know, a low note right now, character-wise, in terms of not being that enthusiastic, even for him. They point out Callis wasn't on commentary because he's trying to figure out the Ospreay thing or deal with that, or maybe he's out trying to just get to Rush. I agree that Zach was a great addition to the match, but at the same time, I wanted Zach to feel more like a big deal. I had this thought while watching this match, and we've talked about how like Forbidden Doors lost its, you know, kind of cachet over the years because it's not as big of a deal to see these guys. We've seen them many times. Zack Sabre's been in many times. And what it feels like now is more like a family holiday, like Christmas or Thanksgiving, when you're like, oh, we're going to see the cousins.
Yeah. Forbidden Doors.
And it's like, it's been a while since I've seen the cousins. It's fine to see them, but it's not like a big deal anymore, you know? So, cousin Zach's in this weekend. Oh, hi, you know, here's an 8-man tag match for you. And I felt like for me, I'm actually very excited about Orange Cassidy and Zack Sabre Jr. I think that'll be a really fun match.
Sure. Could steal the show.
Yeah, it could. But it'll be hard because there's some other show stealing matches on there.
Sure, absolutely. But that's how good those guys are. They could easily steal the show.
Yeah, they could. I don't know. There was just something about putting Zach in an 8-man that made me feel like, man, I really want a guy like him to come in and feel like, oh my God, Zack Sabre Jr.'s here. You know? And I don't know.
This is the New Japan formula, though. Like, they'll do the multi-man match to set up all the different, like, disparate single matches in there. And what they did was kind of interesting in the beginning. I don't know if it really came off the way they wanted it to, but you had the 3 partners of Cassidy and the 3 partners of Zach rush to the ring and go at each other. And then those 2 guys were kind of like left to kind of circle each other and just make the beeline slowly towards the thing.
Right.
And I'm not sure if this was the time where they needed to have Orange Cassidy do the Naito, where he just did not care and he took his time with the elbow drop, because this is the first time these 2 have seen each other in a year. Yeah. And Zach is chomping at the bit to see him. And then when he does see him, he's just watching him do a shtick. and they actually get jumped by Fletcher and Briscoe, and you know, their little teardown thing. And it was almost like that was the moment where I felt like they misread the situation a little bit, and they wanted to keep them from touching each other right away and to build the anticipation of the match. It's totally fine. You know, the psychology of who won, who lost, it really didn't matter in this match. You know, it's just a bunch of disparate factors that you pick up a Easter egg of somebody's behavior here or there. But it really was, you know, get that ladder match over. That is not going to have any New Japan talent, because no one from New Japan is going to be defending a TNT title. G1 around with the G1 around.
Spoiler for Takeshita.
Let's slow our roll here. You know, it's like he could have the belt, but nobody's defending it, and so you can. Just
I would love it if they just dropped Yano in that match, in that ladder match, though.
Sure, absolutely. You know, Yano's not going to win the G1, and he's not going to win the ladder match, but it would be a whole lot of fun.
No, it'd be great. He doesn't even have to do anything. He doesn't even have to be a base. All he has to do is do Yano shtick while the other 5 guys do a ladder match.
Yeah, try to tell everyone a DVD. It would be great.
Yeah, he could handcuff people to the bottom of the ladder.
Little bit of
then he starts to climb up, and they all pull on the handcuffs to tip the ladder over. You know, like there's a lot you could do.
There was one interesting aspect on the heel side that I thought was fun. Fletcher was a babyface on the heel side. Like, all he was doing was saving his teammates and taking the bullets and everything across the sun to say hey, I got you guys, and not really attacking ferociously as the others, but he was just was there.
He was a team player.
Tie that into the conflicted backstage, and you can kind of see, you know, we don't know what the deal was with Mark Davis, but there may be a shifting of the allegiances with the whole Callis family. It might not just be, you know.
Will interesting. Maybe. Well, it'd be weird to have the. I guess not United. Well,
I mean, if Fletcher
United
leaves,
Empire, I don't know if they would bring in United
They're
Empire.
Not going to do anything with United Empire. No. They can create something a little bit different. But if Fletcher leaves, it kind of pivots Trent into the Fletcher role, and then you bring Rush in to be the guy that they wanted Trent to be, and it's oh, there you go. I'd be
down for a Takeshita Rush tag team.
Yeah, you know.
There was also a little tension between Takeshita and Strong had a little tension in the match where they were sort of pushing each other a little bit, and I think I took that as foreshadowing that Strong's going to make it into the TNT ladder match.
I can see that. He's a good guy for that kind of thing, even though I'm not sure how much he really loves ladders.
No.
But I mean, Rush as the guy, as the front man for Callis, while Takeshita is off doing the G1, also makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, it does, totally.
So I like Rush and Callis together. That is diabolical
like that
and devastating.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right. We got a brief, but I thought very good Mercedes Moné video hyping her up in the match with Stephanie Vaquera. Did not really tell you too much about Vaquera, but we had a little more of that before last week, I think. So this one was all Mercedes, and I like the presentation of Mercedes here because, you know, we've talked, Mercedes is at her best when she's working, and that's when I feel like I respond to her the most. I don't respond to her as like the red carpet celebrity. All the things she was doing the first 7 weeks she was in the company before Double or Nothing. So I like now that she's active, they're doing, honestly, what it did was it made me feel really sad that Jade Cargill is gone, because if Mercedes and Jade Cargill had been a match, these promos would have been great. Yeah. Because you have this thing of these are people who look like $1 million, two people who look like $1 million, work their butts off in the gym. They're hardcore athletes, but they're also totally glamorous. And I just liked that. I felt like, okay, I can get with this Mercedes. So I liked it.
I am in a position where I see Mercedes and I think she is on cruise control at a very high gear. You know, like we are at a 3 or a 4 right now, where it's like they're going fast. They are trying to make sure that they don't lose any momentum with Forbidden Door all the way through. It makes a whole lot of sense at this point that they waited until Forbidden Door so they can give her the banger of the match, immediately go into another title, immediately go into this summer domination by Mercedes Moné, and not miss a beat. And God help them if anybody gets hurt or anything like that along the way, because they're moving full steam ahead with her right now. I 1000% believe that she is winning that title, and she's walking around with 2 belts, and she'll be collecting more and going into All In, trying to just, get some other belt somewhere that exists that we haven't figured out yet. But, the Mercedes World Tour is not ending anytime soon. And I feel like when you do these video packages, hyping it just to make sure that she is fresh, and they're not doing that for other people. There are other people that certainly could get these video packages. No, she is like, Okada didn't get quite that video package tonight. You know what I mean? Like Okada's presentation was drastically different.
We could get to Okada. That's coming up next, actually.
But I mean, like, you had Ospreay having the fiery promo. You had Okada being supporting character number 1 to the flattest match of the show. And then you had Mercedes making sure that, like, you're still on the gas. And that's totally fine. Like, she did not have to be the focus tonight. And if she had been, I feel like it would have taken away from a lot of other matches.
Yeah, I thought it was the right thing to do with her right now. Okay, so now we have the Young Bucks come out to face the Acclaimed in a tag team eliminator match. A couple of things to talk
this is where
here.
This is where Callis and Rush had their
Callis and Rush. Callis said something to Rush, and they went off to negotiate.
He said, "You can come and join our family, or our family is here for you." And Rush just looked at him like,
yeah. Maybe will he get the horns? I love how he says
horns,
the
horns.
You're
gonna get a horn hug.
Yeah. Okay. So Young Bucks come out, introduced as Nicholas and his brother with a pearl necklace, Matthew. Unnecessary. Acclaim come out without Billy Gunn, start to do their rap, cuts the mics, total babyface move nowadays. They go to the screen, and here is greatest wrestler of his generation, Kazuchika Okada, tapping on buttons like some sort of wacky sketch, and then says, "Oh, I pressed the wrong button. So sorry."
The Asian caricature was not necessary.
No.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the thing that you would excoriate WWE for.
But yeah. So I thought about this with him and Mina. Is he doing an Asian character, or are they just, because his English is limited, they're giving him simple things and it's making it appear, there was some discussion about this today on the Discord about
either way. If you are making a decision to move forward with an optic or a perception in which this can be the perceived reception of it, that's a problem.
Yeah, good point.
Like whatever your intent was of how this was supposed to be, whether it was Okada was just being a goof, and then he was being serious, and like the flip you off, like, I got you, like, you guys are whatever. It is the laziest of lazy tropes to do the Asian slow talk, bad English, and then flip it into the other thing. It just, and
then drop the cuss word just because.
Like, it's edgelordy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like it's trying to get a reaction because he didn't get the caster rap, and it's like, you didn't want the caster rap. The caster raps aren't very good. Like,
they're lame.
This isn't the Acclaimed of 3 years ago at in Chicago against Swerve and Keith Lee. This isn't that tag team. I don't know when they stopped being that tag team, but everything about this match was kind of a misread. And when you responded to and you see the crowd, you could tell like this was This was not the reactions that they wanted to get out of anything. The Bucks were flat. Like, they couldn't get reaction until later on in the match. The crowd reacted to Anthony Bowens, but you'll get into the explanation of what happened in this match. But basically, Caster's whole gig was selling a leg injury that in every other match, a doctor would have stopped the match.
Yeah.
Like they've had enough injuries lately where, they've just had to stop the match. And with the amount of trouble that he had doing it, like, you knew it was a work. And they were hamstrung by the realities of pro wrestling and their own company to make this compelling and get over the way it was, which was an eliminator match for a future tag title shot.
Right. And it depresses me in a way, because one of the things that, I grew up a tag team wrestling guy. Tag team wrestling is one of my favorite, probably my favorite type of wrestling. I love tag team wrestling. And I thought AEW was going to be a super strong tag team division. And it's just become this shell of itself. And that's a little bit of what I was watching, was I was like, oh, this, I felt a little bit of this during, not as much, but during the Statlander Nyla match, where it's like, oh, like, I've seen this. It just feels like it's like a shell of what used to be really entertaining. And I'm sure the Bucks have greatness in them still. They just don't seem motivated to do it right now. Or if they are just past I wouldn't call them washed by any means, but like,
they don't seem inspired by what they're doing.
Great. That's an excellent way to put it. The Young Bucks used to be an inspired team. They would wow you. They would,
you come in there, you're like,
the comment, every team has their best match with the Bucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not behaving like the best team in the world. They're not, and I feel like it's almost like intentionally, because they're like, oh, well, we can't be like a really great tag team because we're these entitled heels and it would be out of character, So it's like, well, then that's bad creative. If you're taking one of the best tag teams in history and making them not good because you think they're going to be better off as heels, like, that's not going to work. And the same with Okada. It's the exact same thing with Okada. Yeah, it's the same thing they're doing with Okada. Is they're prioritizing the trolling over what their most valuable assets are. And I'm sure that when Okada has a pay-per-view match, it'll be great. And I'm sure whatever match he has at Wembley will be fantastic. But, Garrett went on a little bit of a rant on this today in the Discord about Okada, that he's like, he I don't know if he put it in these words, but essentially that he's like, they're lessening the legacy of Okada, who is, in my mind, is already enshrined. He's made as an all-time great. Sure. There is no besmirching him. You're not going to, it's not going to undo anything he's done before, but he has many years on his contract. And if this is what he's doing, as much as entertaining as it is, and the shirt with him, with the car and the, all that stuff.
It's a shame that they can't capitalize on the potential of Okada the way that Japan was able to capitalize on the potential. Right. But at the same time, when has it worked? You have Nakamura in WWE, and it's the same thing. Like, there was a point where, like, there was two, where it was just like he was having bangers on NXT. He was really just, getting it under his belt. And then it was just like he went to the main roster, and he won the Rumble that year, and then he lost the title, and he lost the title match at Mania, and it wasn't even like
one low blow, and it was downhill from there. Yep.
And it was just, that was that. And I don't know what the trajectory is with Okada, but I talk a lot about a sense of urgency in wrestling, and you need to have a sense of urgency on Okada. He is not a guy that you can just cool your jets and wrestle him once every 2 months, and like, that's going to get people excited. People love Okada, but you also have to educate people on Okada.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you are assuming that everybody who's ever watched AEW knows who Kazuchika Okada is, knows the legacy of Okada, knows the reign that he had as the top guy in Japan for a decade, and can hit the ground running. They don't do that. All they see is a guy that speaks broken English and flips the guy off and says "bitch" and work the technique and work the electronics because he's Japanese in the back. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on.
Like, and they're doing the same thing with Shibata, where the joke is that he's the camera guy who speaks with a little translator.
Yeah,
you know, and he said it's the same gimick.
When you talk about it on little things here or there, it seems innocuous. But when you like compound it one to the other, and in some ways with Mina Shirakawa and other people in the past, it becomes to be a little concerning the way that the optics are. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to sign a ton of people from Japan, you need to have a better plan than just we're going to sign a ton of people from Japan.
Yes, I do think the trajectory for Okada is they're pretty much just have him on a treadmill until Omega is.
What the hell? Like,
healed.
There's nobody else that you can have Okada with? Like, anybody?
No, and he has they have a perfect setup with him with that Continental title to have a 20-minute time limit match. He should be Tully Blanchard out there. Like, we talk about overexposing Will, because like Will shouldn't be putting on bangers, like high level ones every week. But Okada should be out there every couple of weeks defending that title in a 20-minute time limit match, where he's just making Action and Ready look great. You know what I mean? Like,
how do you not have two titles, like the Continental title and the International title, with Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada having them, and then you alternate every other week on Collision, one of those guys is wrestling or defending the title in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay one week, Okada the next week. Ospreay the next week, Okada the next week.
Mm-hmm.
This is not hard. You have spent money to get these guys there. You want people to watch these other shows, but yet, like, you have this really big long-term plan that you will not deviate from. And so the weekly suffers because you're not ready to pull the trigger on certain things.
Yep. All right. So anyway, we don't know when the Acclaimed are going to get that match. I hope it's not Forbidden Door.
So they won the Eliminator, huh? That is the annual Eliminator win.
Yes,
that we get on
Yeah,
AEW?
we were chatting about trying to remember how many people have actually won Eliminators, and I think you're right. It's about once a year someone does.
I know for sure that Jay White and
Juice
Robinson won one against FTR last year, and it led to a match a week later that they went to a 59-minute match that everyone thought for sure was going to go to a draw.
Yeah,
but there were other suggestions like Thunder Rosa and Miyu Yamashita and a couple other. I just don't know, but it feels like once a year is about the right pace for someone to win an Eliminator challenge.
Yeah, I think I want to say Scorpio Sky won the first one that they did and got a shot at Jericho when they established it as a thing, and then people started losing. So yeah, they'll have a match. I hope I really don't care about that match, so I'm like, just put it on Rampage or something. Or Collision, but at least just put it on TV for once. It does not feel like a pay-per-view match, especially.
You kind of have to knock it out before Blood and Guts, sometime after Forbidden Door, because I don't feel like they're going to be a part of Blood and Guts the way that like the Acclaimed do not feel part of the trajectory of Blood and Guts. So you have to knock that out before.
Yeah, you think I wonder. You think like maybe they had earmarked Acclaimed for Blood and Guts, and then like just decided against it, and they're like, okay, well, let's just do this little mini program real quick to kind of get them out of it. Or was FTR originally playing for Blood and Guts, and because of the injury, they had to drop Acclaimed in, and that was their choice to like be a short-term fill-in.
I don't love it, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Do not love it.
Yeah. It's sad. The Acclaimed had a lot of potential, and they were really cooking there about 2 years ago. And my theory is that when they made that they were genuinely loved and a genuinely organically grown team in AEW that had a lot of support. And then when they made Billy Gunn the centerpiece, like when they made him the star of the team, as I think fans turned on them without knowing it, because it became a nostalgia act. Not in a way like Sting was, but a real nostalgia act where it was like just sort of it became all about the call and response and the shtick, but they weren't genuinely behind Billy, and they're not genuinely behind the Acclaim anymore because they just see them, I think without realizing it, they just became a call and response team instead of a genuine.
Was the Acclaimed run the last time that the tag titles really felt like there was a solid direction for what, like the direction to get the Acclaim, the tag titles, right? Like we talk about, the chase is sometimes the main journey, or the title run is the main journey. The Acclaimed chase really felt like the last time there was a real strong emphasis on the tag titles.
Yeah.
Because then they kind of moved over a bunch of teams to the
Guns, FTR.
Titles.
Yeah.
And then those tag titles had just hot potatoed everywhere to the point now they're just sitting on the Young Bucks, and even them winning them, it just didn't, like, it was flat when they won them, and it hasn't felt like even remotely, like you said, a featured aspect of the programming is to emphasize the tag programs.
No, because they're behaving like people who don't want to be tag champions. They're behaving like people who are where the character is people who want the belt as a prop, and like it just doesn't work for them.
No,
it's just a bummer. It angers me. Moving on. Joe and Hook doing the Pulp Fiction bit that they've been doing, where people casually have conversation before they go destroy people in the hallway. I didn't quite follow this week's.
There's a challenge on Collision.
Yeah. The conversation.
They left a note. There's a challenge on Collision. Probably another angle.
I will say, in the same week that we had the debut of the Wyatt Six in WWE murdering an entire production crew and possibly Chad Gable on live television, the most unrealistic thing I saw in wrestling this week was the Premier Athletes having their own locker room.
I mean, it felt like a hall closet, but sure.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a broom closet. Maybe it's like they just found a little place to hide out and they just put the sign up themselves.
Yeah.
Or maybe just Joe. Maybe just Joe. They were hiding in there and Joe stuck it on there so he could remember where they were. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, they weren't there. They challenged him to a match on Collision. Shibata drops bitches too, just for fun, on his little recorder. So we have Shibata, Hook, and Joe versus Premier Athletes on Collision. That should be fun. I think that'd be a fun.
Yeah. I mean, those are the kind of matches people are like, I want to see Joe beat the shit out of somebody. Sure, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the pairing of Shibata, Hook, and Joe. I think it's a
the kind of thing. It's like the Outrunners and Dalton Castle. It's fresh and it feels like everybody has they get a little something out of it.
And they click out of it. It's brought another side out of Joe, which has been fun.
Sure.
I'll always prefer Joe
wanting to teach someone his ways is very enjoyable.
The real learning tree,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so now we have Mariah May out to introduce the Toni Storm, Mina Shirakawa contract signing. And boy, if you wanted WWE, this was it. She brings up Mina Shirakawa, who is just leaning into it is an understatement.
The set pot.
I don't know what the assignment was for Mina, but she understood it. Like she is just straight up playing up the sex pot thing even more than she does in Stardom.
She was
just
actually
ridiculous.
She was actually following Tony's specific instructions. Tits out, whatever. Watch out for the shoe.
Yeah, definitely had her chin up, so to speak.
Chin up, tits out, and watch out for the shoe. That is
this girl just
the instructions that Mariah followed when she walked down that ramp.
She just walked right out of like 1998 Raw's War. up to the mic. So
it's almost like if you ever watched like old 60s and 70s Japanese animes with like the curvy like Asian girl that like almost like the pinup girl, and then like you'd watch the animation of them like just watching that, and all the like the guy's eyes like pop out and do that. That was basically what you got from Mina Shirakawa. Is that it was just like every person who has like an attraction to a Japanese woman, their dreams came true with what she was playing up on this show.
Yeah, she's the living embodiment of it, and she knows it.
She was the Marilyn Monroe of Japanese like female wrestlers tonight. This was what was happening.
And like Jeff and Paul last week talked about, there's a line between objectification and empowerment, and I am not the man to determine where that line is.
It felt a little more empowering tonight than it did last week.
I think she plays it. She plays it with a confidence where she feels like she is owning it, and that she has the power. You know, that she's not. The key
to this contract signing was they did the signing and they trash talk, but at the very end, Mina made it clear that Mariah needed to choose between Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. And there is, I don't remember exactly what the thing is, but it's the act of two women having conversation that have nothing to do with men.
The Bechdel test.
You know what I mean? The Bechdel test. This was it was getting close to the Bechdel test, you know, because it was.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the Bechdel test people would be like,
It played absolutely up to the male gaze.
Yeah,
but it was not.
But it wasn't for them. Yeah,
the women were lesser as a result. You know, it's like they were empowered by their attractiveness.
Yeah.
Rather than using their attractiveness to sway the audience.
Yeah,
like,
they're not.
The conflict was about them.
They're not playing for the approval of a male.
Yes.
Whether it's on camera or in the audience, they're just doing.
And that was my concern about this was that it was, you know, it's like there was the male gaze that we all had to approve of it, and it was trying to titillate us with the kisses and all this stuff. And this really did feel like there was legitimate stakes to this match about the alliance between Mariah and Toni and the alliance between Mina and Toni. And then it all went off a cliff.
Yeah. I will say, as much as we talked about just now about how they're presenting Japanese legends, and I would not put Mina as a legend, but I felt like she did a good job delivering her monologue in a genuine way. I mean, a genuine way for that ridiculous character, but, you know, I have no idea how good her English is, but she delivered a lot of content. I'll put it that way. And she was very assertive in it. And even the line of saying, I'm going to take your title and I'm going to take my girl.
This is the biggest moment of her life, right? Like, this is the biggest up to this point.
I mean, I would think so. I mean, I'm sure some Stardom fans would say, but I don't know if she's ever been this front and center in Stardom. She's been a big deal, but
she's going to be in the AEW World Title match at a pay-per-view in the United States. Yeah. This is, for some people, like, I made it. You know what I mean? Like, even more so than Stardom, because she's never been at the tippy top of Stardom. You know, like she's not. She is upper mid.
She's kind of upper mid, right? Like
So, and I'm not the guy. My partner Steven Conway and our guy Scotty Wrestling is the guy. But we're not talking about Julia here. We're not talking about Tam Nakano. But Mina Shirakawa is a name, and she is of note.
She seems like a in WWE a Chad Gable right now.
Sure.
Like someone who's like heavily featured. Their storylines revolving around them. They might be like number 2 title or a tag title, but like they're not going to be main eventing WrestleMania.
So she knows that this is her shot. Not her shot, but like people are watching, and if she doesn't like hit it out of the park, you know, there are perceptions to that like maybe you're more Deonna Purrazzo than you are Jamie Hayter kind of thing.
Yeah, and I will say, she does have her own identity. You can say whether or not you like what she's doing, but like she has a unique personality that a lot of the Japanese women stars that have come over haven't. Even someone like Hikaru Shida is a little. She's got great baby fresh presence, but she doesn't have like a really distinct personality. And Mina like has a distinct personality.
No, Mina is 1,000% locked into what she is as a pro wrestler.
Yeah, and she knows exactly what that is, and she knows. Yeah.
When I see Hikaru Shida, I see someone that likes to cosplay and enjoy herself and wrestle. But I see Mina as like a career pro wrestler, and she is all in on this. Yeah. I just see two different, like, I had two different people.
Okay, well, let's get to the bad part now. So Saraya interrupts.
We have to talk about this.
And I'm a fan of Harley Cameron, but Saraya and Harley come out just talking trash for no reason. Anna Jay suddenly is with the Outcasts again. Attacks Mina. Saraya takes out Toni. They set up a table to knock Mariah through the table. Toni saves Mariah with the shoe because they didn't watch for the shoe. Kind of cleans house. Goes for the hip attack on Saraya, I think. Saraya gets pulled out of the way. Toni goes through the table by her hip, and they make a point to show that while Toni is crumpled in a heap in the ring, Mina is upstage comforting Mariah outside in the same way that Toni nestles.
Because Mina saved Mariah.
Because Maria saved Mariah and left Toni. So this will be followed up. They made no mention of this until the very end and then didn't even mention it, I don't think. Yeah, they did not even mention it. They just showed a graphic and did not acknowledge it. That next week on Dynamite, it'll be Saraya, Anna Jay, and Harley Cameron versus Mina Shirakawa, Toni Storm, and Mariah May. So we're going to do the Can They Coexist for a week right before their big match. At least
they already did an Anna Jay and Mina Shirakawa match to set that up in the very beginning. That's good. There's also the Saraya and Mariah May match that was announced for what we'll talk about in the next segment.
Yep.
That's also good. They tried to do too much in one segment, and they introduced elements that they had not even really disclosed with the tournament. Apparently, Saraya already knew that she was going to be wrestling Mariah May or something.
Yeah.
In the next
there was a few of those things where people mention things as if we all knew it. Already. And that's a common AEW problem. They don't know what they've said and not said a lot of the times, and it's really frustrating.
They had a lot of things they had to do. They wanted to make sure that, all these angles got addressed. The problem to me was this angle was beginning to hum. This match, the setup, the build for the AEW World title was starting to fire and wasn't firing at this point for me. And then they did this like 6-woman setup.
Yeah.
And it just killed all of it for me. Because they realized that they needed to like keep the momentum going, and we all know what's going to happen. The partners are not going to get along, and they'll win, but it'll either be tenuous or they'll lose, and they'll blame each other. But it's programming rather than what feels like what was a really good build, and then they ran out of ideas.
Yeah, it's just a little side quest. They did a whole angle just because they had another week to fill, and probably what'll happen is I would imagine that probably, like you said, the bickering or the trying to outshine each other will lead to probably, I'm thinking like Saraya will pin Mariah.
I think Mariah's going the whole way.
I think Mariah's going the whole way. I'm talking about in the 6-woman match.
Oh, next week, yeah. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I think Mariah's going the whole way. Okay,
it could be Toni gets the pin on Anna Jay after Mina.
Yeah, that's true. They could just do the side thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You can do it.
Okay, so we had a pretty good Claudio Pack preview video for the main event. At first I thought it was because it was coming up next, but it was the main event, so it was fine.
Hyping up main event, good video packages. These are what they should be doing.
Then we went to an announcement of the Owen Hart brackets, which I appreciate that they did. And let me pull that up here because we have it right here. There we go. There's the men's bracket. Claudio Castagnoli versus Pac, which was held tonight, and Pac won, but we'll get to that in a second. Then they just sort of casually announced that Bryan Danielson's facing Shingo Takagi. They don't say anything about when or where at this point, but they just sort of throw it out there. Ray Phoenix versus Jay White, which is that'll be fun. Mm-hmm. And then this is my most exciting development: Jeff Jarrett in the Owen Hart, which that's great considering his history with Owen and everything, against a wild card. And the two names I've seen speculated most by people who have no idea is either Hangman Page, which makes sense in many ways, or a lot of the hopefuls are like, oh, I bet it's Ricochet. I very seriously doubt it's Ricochet based on the timing, but could be wrong.
I know Paul Fontaine gave it some thought and really thought that Hangman would be the guy. And Brad Ryder in the Discord also followed up that Hangman's gimmick is being the wild card and coming and winning something. And it's happened more than once.
That is a great point.
Those two guys had sniffed that out.
Yes. Brad knows his AEW tropes.
He does. His lore is very good. Does Hangman Page
Jeff Jarrett's a weird
Wembley and face Swerve?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me.
Does Hangman Page win against Swerve at Wembley?
Maybe. I could see it.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think Toni. I wouldn't say he's regretting putting Swerve as in the champion slot, but I don't think he is invested in it long term. Oh, so I could very easily see him beating Will to kind of legitimize his reign, and then losing to Hangman. Yeah, I could see that easy.
So Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi is the American Dragon versus the Japanese Dragon, which thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Uncle Tony, or whatever you want to be called. That was
that's for the sickos.
Very Merry Christmas. That's fantastic. Danielson and Pac is what I'm assuming is going to be following up with that. Yep. And man, gonna be great there. And then we got Phoenix and Jay White, Jeff Jarrett on the wild card. Jeff Jarrett's a heel. Kind of think it needs to be a babyface that goes there. But if Jeff Jarrett's a babyface, I don't even know. I feel like he's still a heel. Trying to figure out what babyface could be there. And then I'm looking at Jay White and Ray Phoenix, and it's like, feel like that's Jay White. But I don't even know. Jay White and Hangman Page had a fantastic match 5 years ago in New Japan.
Yeah, they did.
For the U.S. title. And so if you wanted to run that one back, I certainly would not mind.
So you're not holding out hope for a Shingo Takagi Jeff Jarrett final?
I don't see Shingo Takagi spending too much time more than one match. Seeing as
no, I think he's one and out. I think it's a clever way to get him on the pay-per-view.
I've already seen the date that he has for New Japan going into the next few weeks. And I don't think he's going to be around or going to be available all that much.
And that's fine. Yeah. If you're going to bring him in for a limited thing, I think just do this and
Danielson's only got a few more months on this career here. Apparently, let's get them all. Let's line them up and knock them down.
I also when we talk about Hangman winning and going all the way, if Hangman is the wild card, I also see a very, very viable path where it is Bryan Danielson going all the way and getting the title shot and doing the rematch in Wembley. I don't know if he would win or. I don't see Bryan Danielson winning.
By somebody,
yeah. I don't see. There's something going on with Claudio, so we'll see what happens there. But I mean, Danielson called a shot. I could see them doing that. I don't see Danielson really accepting going over at Wembley, even if he did get to that match.
I have long ago just removed any idea of Danielson ever holding the AEW world title for whatever reason. And so however close you want to get him, that's fine. But I do not see him holding that title in any way, shape, or form. And I also don't see him holding the Owen Hart Cup final. I think the guy just wants to put other people over and have great matches.
I agree. I will say though, if Ospreay does win at Forbidden Door, Danielson becomes my favorite to win that.
What do you mean? Oh, Danielson becomes the favorite to win.
Yeah, if Ospreay wins the world title at Forbidden Door, I think the path is
that is booking malpractice if you have Ospreay win the title here and now.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolute booking malpractice.
Yeah. No, he's not.
I don't even want to entertain it, dude.
It's not. This is not Hulk Hogan in '84, where it's just like you just got to put him in and start the train. No. He's got to have a chase.
Ospreay's never had the traditional babyface chase, and it's clear that that's what they want to do. So just do it.
Yeah,
lock it in, and then get him like cemented as the guy for the next decade.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the women's bracket. Willow Nightingale, Serena Deeb. That happens on Friday. It's probably already happened at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably Willow's winning because everything on the show that they did around that basically made the assumption that she's winning. Not because Kris Statlander beat Nyla Rose tonight, and they immediately called out Willow and treated Serena as an afterthought. So I appreciated Willow coming on and wishing everyone a happy Juneteenth. But they pretty much just ignored that. So that side of the bracket seems pretty clear. On the other side, we have Deonna Purrazzo and Hikaru Shida, who's been kind of slumming in ROH for a little bit. Neither one of these people have a lot of momentum, so it's interesting that Thunder Rosa is not in this tournament. And then we have Mariah May and Saraya, and that's happening Saturday?
I don't know.
Let me look. I think I wrote that down. Maybe not.
I don't think they've
announced it. Yeah. So I think we both think Mariah's taking the whole thing.
And Deeb.
Yeah.
Collision has no Owen Hart matches, and Dynamite has Switchblade and Jay White for an Owen Hart match.
So we both think Mariah May is probably taking the whole thing. You think she goes over Statlander in the final?
Yes. Yes, Statlander and Willow. I think Statlander wins the match in an insulated tournament scenario, but Willow wins the big match to blow off the feud.
Yeah.
If Mariah May is a babyface, I'm going to go with Deonna Purrazzo winning that match because she has been getting a couple of low-key wins over Thunder Rosa.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see, her winning one, and then Thunder Rosa like, I'm not letting you get any further in this tournament. So Mariah May, just Mariah May, Toni Storm, getting to Wembley, the hometown girl. You saw how that worked out at Cash the Classical.
And and you know what though? If they really do make this build to Mariah versus Toni at Wembley, and it is successful, like it's considered a success, like hats off to them on how they brought in Mariah May. Because remember when she showed up, everyone was like, wow, this girl's DOA. They announced her like that. And,
they stayed the course.
Somebody had a clear path that they wanted to follow. They timed it out right. And she seems to be building momentum at the right time. And so I'm not going to congratulate them quite yet.
You can take a victory lap when you do this, right?
Yeah.
The criticism is they're not doing this enough. And we're giving them like the pat on the back.
It shouldn't stick out this much.
When they do it and we're like commending them, hey, good job. That's fantastic. It's like, this should be commonplace. Like this shouldn't be the, recognition of a job well done. This is baseline expectations of a competent wrestling company to build over a course of a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
And, it's like you see a lot of people that should be getting these reactions and they're not. And that's a testament to Mariah May's talent and what she brings to the table. But also, the booking and the planning has done her favors up to this point.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for them to nail it because I like.
Me too.
All right, I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit because we're like about an hour 20 in. We still have 4 or 5 more segments to go. But like we said before, Kris Statlander beat Nyla Rose in what I would call a perfectly cromulent wrestling match.
I was thinking the same thing. Perfectly cromulent.
Yeah.
We don't see Nyla Rose all that much. Statlander was made to look good after a little bit of 50-50, but it's like there's nothing about this match that will make you like, oh, you need to go check this out.
No. I did like Nyla.
exactly...
Nyla did get a great reception. The people really liked seeing her again. Good Nyla chance. Highlight of the whole segment to me was Stokely announcing that if Willow ever laid a hand on him, she'd end up in the same cell as Justin Timberlake.
That was a good line.
That was a good line.
So we basically went from 6:30 to about 6:25 to about 6:45 with all women segments, and we'll see how that goes in the ratings.
Mm-hmm.
That should be it. That was a choice.
Yeah. I hope
this too was a choice. This next segment.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Learning Tree segment. Private Party are backstage with Renee and their security guard that I never learned his name, but I love that he's a real AEW security guy, but he's part of the act. Jericho comes in, decides to give a lesson, says when he was Corazon de Leon in CMLL in Mexico, that when someone tried to give him a pile driver, his answer would be, "That doesn't work for me, brother." Which is another example of something that popped people a week before, so let's just keep doing it. And then Bill refers to having a match with them on Saturday as if it has been announced, but I don't think it has been announced. And then tells them good luck on their match on Friday, which also I don't believe had been announced yet. And then Jeff Hawkins' new favorite, the bounty hunter, Brian Keith, comes in and says, if you're going to do a tope con hilo, you better respect Chris Jericho, which I think is solid advice.
I mean, yes.
Kind of.
There was good and bad on this.
Yeah. That was
just
a nothing thing. Learning Tree does nothing for me. Brian Keith is entertaining. He's probably going to get more and more entertaining as it goes, but he's essentially the new I like this hat guy.
Private Party got to retort.
They did get to retort, and I do kind of like that I do like that Private Party like makes fun of people when they get, they don't just like, they kind of like, Zay's like do the impression of him and stuff. But whatever, I don't know. The match, I believe, is Chris Jericho and Bill against them on Saturday, not Brian Keith, which I guess is better for star power, but I would be more interested in a Brian Keith, Big Bill team myself.
I like the positivity of Big Bill with the thumbs up and the huge geek factor. I think he's leaning all in on that. And Big Bill, if nothing else, has committed to every single gimmick asked of him this time of AEW. And he deserves better.
Company man,
But he is working for his job.
Yep. But he's showing up to work. He's not
the only thing I have to say about this promo. Funny, sure. There were moments, sure. But how burned would AEW feel if NXT promo class did this promo and aired it on Twitter?
Yeah.
Like they took this entire dialogue and had their NXT guys do this, like the thumbs up, the geeking out, the whole thing, and then aired it on Twitter and just did like, hey, we did a rehearsal for like this tribute. It would make that segment look so bad. Like it is target practice for getting excoriated by the other guys. And you can keep doing this if you want, but there's going to come a point where it's just going to blow up in your faces. And as long as the audience is happy, I suppose. But it just kind of...
Chris Jericho has just learned that his superpower is just getting things over by sheer force of will. And I think that list back in 2017 or whenever it was in WWE just like broke his brain. And he's like, you know what?
His brain was broke when he did a countdown clock. Are you kidding me?
You're right. But I think he is literally like, this is the most meta gimmick for him in a long time, because he's literally just blatantly saying, I'm just trying to get TV time, guys, and stay out there and stay relevant and sell some shirts. And I don't know where it's going. I don't really care.
Making the most of his minutes, even though they're at the cost of everybody else.
Yeah. Which is par for the course, I guess. All right, Daniel Garcia versus Rhett Titus. I didn't have a problem.
Explain what happened before we do anything. You need to explain what happened.
Okay, so Daniel Garcia was announced earlier in the show. He'll be in action. He comes out, does his entrance. We see Rhett Titus in the ring without an entrance, waiting for him. They bring him up and say he's ROH guy, former TV champion. Barely get to introduce Daddy Magic on commentary. Daniel Garcia does this quick squash. It was probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, if that. Like this was like a TBS Saturday afternoon squash match.
Look at AEW Dark match.
Yeah. Even that, I mean, it was like entrance, squash, whatever. So then I'm thinking, okay, cool.
Hot moves by Titus,
yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. Great. We have more time. Daniel Garcia is going to take the mic. He's going to do a promo. He's going to call out Will Ospreay for next week in Buffalo, New York, in his hometown, and we're going to get to see that match. Nope. Instead, here comes the Gates of Agony again, or the Cage of Agony, excuse me. I did like the visual of them just cutting to the announce desk, and like Daddy Magic is just like splayed out as they've like pulled him out from behind the thing like some kind of horror villain. They lay out Daddy Magic and Garcia. MJF comes out. Because Hechicero's with them. So, of course, MJF comes out because now he just hates Hechicero in a blood feud, even though he's never met him. Comes out, starts biting him, takes out Hechicero and all three members of the Gates of Agony in about 10 seconds.
By himself.
Hechicero comes back in, gets a hold of him, puts him in a submission hold, which I did appreciate. They were talking about affecting his shoulder that he had issues with.
Yeah, Cage got him with the suplex first.
Yeah, that's right. Cage got him with a big German, then Hechicero put him in a submission hold. Will Ospreay makes the save on MJF. Crowd loves it. He brings the belt out with him. I'm thinking, oh no. Like my life flashed before my eyes because all I could think was the word bruv chachos.
That's never happened.
And I thought, oh no. Is Will going to be taking MJF for Chiqui Nando's? But no, they did a face-to-face. The crowd loved it, seeing Will and MJF come face-to-face, which is, I think, first time I could imagine that they've ever been in that kind of scenario.
Not been an opportunity for them before.
So crowd's into that. MJF bails through the crowd. Will helps Daniel up, gestures to his title belt, which I thought might, I expected a graphic to just pop up out of nowhere and say next week, the title match. Did not mention it, but Dynamite is in Buffalo next week. So what I imagine is that Saturday we'll see him defend the title against Cage, because I'll go ahead and do the next part. When they come back from commercial, Will's in the hallway and Cage starts yelling at him, and Will gives him a title shot on Saturday on Collision. So what I'm presuming is that they're going to do that match, and then they'll announce Garcia getting a title match on Wednesday in his hometown.
I am assuming Ospreay and MJF are getting set up for Blood and Guts as part of Team AEW.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that's really the direction that they might be going against the Bucks and whatever group that they have, because there's really no other reason to put those two together at this exact point. Especially if they settle whatever issue.
Yeah. Okay. I wondered if it was one of those things like you would see in like a Royal Rumble where they just sort of trial balloon, what would happen if we put them together?
Putting what happened can happen.
Yeah. Just to get it planted in there. But
we
that's
know
an interesting thought.
A babyface. It's clear that MJF is a babyface. And it's also clear that poor fucking Daniel Garcia, who just got made to look like the biggest fucking geek, sitting in the corner watching these two baby faces square off, and he's just made to sit there and watch on the ground.
Yeah, after his dominant win.
I was just like, you fucked this up real bad. It's cool that you have Ospreay, you have MJF there.
Yeah.
But you needed a scenario where Daniel Garcia was not left to look in the corner like, I am so clearly lesser than these guys.
Yeah.
And I don't belong here. Was just, It was hard.
They easily could have avoided it and still gotten it. And just off the top of my head, like, I would have liked to have seen them do Will coming out. Like, Garcia does the quick squash, takes the mic. It's like, I'm ready. I want the shot. Next week in my hometown, give it to me. And Will comes out, accepts the match. Then you could have Cage bum rush.
Then you have MJF do the rest.
Then you have MJF even the odds. You can still do the stare down with MJF and Will, but then what you need to do is have Garcia get in between them.
Yes.
And like be like, no, this is my time. This is my my piece. And then
it was
MJF
clear
goes
that
off.
he was not the focus after that, and it was just rough.
Which is a shame. A shame. Okay, so now we're in the main event. Claudio versus Pac for the Owen tournament. Claudio comes in running through the crowd. He's been a maniac lately. Walking along the rails and all this stuff. He's up to something. Danielson's on commentary. I thought Danielson was really good. Yeah, he's having a little bit of a mental break. Danielson I thought was good on commentary. Was just being Bryan Danielson. He wasn't really like playing Blackpool Combat Club too much. He was just sort of being like, friendly Bryan Danielson. This was one of those matches. It's better than Cromulent. I thought it was good, but it's one of those things where you're like, imagine a Pac and Claudio match in your mind, and this is what it was. So
this wasn't as good as their Ring of Honor match.
And I don't even remember that match, but they were not trying to blow people away with it, and that's fine. But it was fine. I'll just put it that way. It was fine. One moment that I note was Excalibur. This is just bad timing. Excalibur actually does bring up Bryan Danielson versus Takagi. We're announcing that it's a Forbidden Door. Like a big announcement. Your match against Shingo Takagi will be at Forbidden Door. And then as he's starting to say that, Claudio hits Pac with a European uppercut. And they go, wow, what a move. Now let's go to commercial. And then, because of the gimmick where I watch in England, I can watch through the commercials. Then they spend the commercial break talking about the Shingo match. Danielson
really
does all
it on the commercial break.
Danielson's really selling that match as a big match, and it's a huge deal. It's going to be a Forbidden Door. Totally done talking about it by the time they get back from commercial. So all the people who watched on TNT, they got one mention of it, and then they threw to commercial and never came back. So
we did not, in fact, get a whole lot of dialogue about Shingo and Danielson. The Battle of the Dragons.
Yeah. Now there will be a great video package next week, I'm sure. The Battle of the Dragons. And Bryan Danielson talked about that, how excited he was, and the Battle of the Dragons is natural, and he got to do it and all that.
Did they call it the Battle of the Dragons? Did he call it the Battle of the Dragons? Or did
Bryan did during the commercial break, I believe he did. He talked about it's the American Dragon. Yeah, the American Dragon.
That just says the Battle of the Dragons on it.
Yeah, that'll be good. One of those good little posters that they do sometimes.
Oh yeah.
So like we said, good match. I actually did like the ending. It was a little goofy, but they did 6 consecutive pin attempts. And whenever they do something like that, I'm always like, man, one of these days I'd like to see that end in a 3 count. And this one did. Pac got him with a crucifix, and on the 7th attempt between the two of them.
I feel like I see this finish once every month through Japan, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happens on AEW, they don't do it. They don't go to the well too much on it. And they needed to have a match where it was like these two were evenly paired. And that's they are on the card very close to each other and what they offer. Mm-hmm. And it's like even that Ring of Honor World title match that they had at December, I think it was a December one, maybe 2 years ago when Claudio had his title run. They had a blowaway match. Like they beat the hell out of each other. This wasn't that. This was definitely not a pay-per-view match. It was a TV main event match. And when you watch these two matches and you want to know what's the difference between a TV main event and a Ring of Honor and a pay-per-view. Yeah. This is a perfect example of watching two matches and knowing the difference between the two.
Yep.
And that's basically all I have to say. There was, for the most part, a 100% thumbs up show with some mystifying decisions, a couple of angles and things that just were unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said at the beginning of the show, I feel like AEW is heading in the right direction. These
Mm-hmm.
Dynamites have been better and more focused and more action oriented and video package oriented and presentation. And I don't know if it's because they've been motivated by themselves or they're seeing a better product from other people that are also doing pro wrestling. But whatever it is, I like that the competition is creating better product.
Yeah. Everything's solid. Very few things bad. Nothing great tonight, but that's okay. I think it's okay. Like
Swerve and Ospreay versus Gates of Agony have been announced for Dynamite, according to Corey Richmond. So there's no Ospreay versus Garcia in Buffalo.
Man, that's ridiculous. Okay.
Thank you, Corey.
Well, let me just run these down real quick. They did make several announcements at the end of the show. So Rampage on Friday, Serena versus Willow, Lio Rush versus Action Andretti to qualify for the TNT title match. Either one of those would be interesting. I'd love to see Lio in there.
I think Leo should be the guy, especially because Dante's in there. You don't have two guys for the same.
Yeah, you're right. You don't need Andrade. Andretti, not Andrade. Private Party against Metalik and Commander. That's a very Rampage match. It's a Rampagey match. Collision will be Jericho and Big Bill versus Private Party. Will Ospreay versus Brian Cage for the international title, and Kazuchika Okada versus Ultimo Guerrero in a Continental title eliminator match. Sure.
And then you got Hook, Joe, and Shibata and the Premier Athletes.
Oh yeah, Hook, Show, and Shibata. Yeah, I didn't write that down. They didn't plug that at the end. I just missed. Yeah, and then they had a segment that just said MJF in Memphis. I don't know what that's going to mean, but MJF will be in Memphis. Maybe they'll do a concession stand brawl. Then Dynamite next week, Outcast, Saraya, Anna, and Harley versus Mina, Toni, and Mariah. Jay White versus Ray Phoenix in the Owen Tournament. And Swerve and Will versus Gates of Agony.
And then by that point, you will have your faithful, trusty hosts, Paul Fontaine and Jeff Hawkins, back to take control of their show all over again.
Yep.
And you can, move on from our wonderful insight.
All right, real quick, I'm going to run down the match of Forbidden Door. We probably don't have time to get into any of it, but I would love to hear just which one you're most excited about. So I'm going to run it down. MJF versus Hechicero, Danielson versus Shingo, Jeff Cobb versus TBD for the New Japan TV title. John Moxley, that may not happen, but they're just teasing it. John Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP World Championship. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. Tony Storm versus Mina Shirakawa. Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vicaire for both the AEW World and NJPW Strong titles. And Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe versus Jack Perry versus Dante Martin versus two other people for the TNT title in a ladder match.
I think I'm going to go with Shingo versus Danielson and Orange versus Zack Sabre Jr. because I love my New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I think the card will be fine as a whole. Forbidden Door matches or shows tend to over-deliver, even if the cards leave something to be desired as they are building it up to come. But, Samoa Joe has just been over in the New Japan backstage promos, trying to call a shot to get anybody to come out. It's I don't even know what's going to happen with that one. I wish
Joe and Cobb.
I wish that we're going to get. I want to see it happen. I just, I feel like they would have. There's no reason not to get that thing, underway if that's the plan. Yeah. So, what are they waiting for? If Cobb is going to face the biggest, meanest son of a bitch there and go to a draw or win or whatever, because certainly it loses.
Watch him do this 6-man with the Premier Athletes, and Cobb just comes out and murders. He's a substitute for one of the two, and he just comes out and murders Joe.
God, don't put the energy of putting Cobb in a 6-man at Forbidden Door. God.
No. I'm saying Cobb.
No, but I'm saying
I'm saying the 6-man.
But if you have a 6-man, and then
on Collision.
I know, but if you start introducing the 6-man and you have Cobb involved with 3 other guys, I feel like you're going to get caught in a six man, and I don't want that.
No.
God, I hope not. I just feel like
Don't
there
you
are
put that on
plans.
me, Ricky Bobby.
When they start going in one direction, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Let's just keep it to this guy and this guy. If you start introducing a whole lot of other guys, they all got to play a part somewhere. So I don't like keep any six-man team away from like any plan. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I agree.
God, and they're just matches they hand you on a silver platter, and you better just deliver them.
Yeah, you would hope, but you know, we're you
Plans
never
change,
know.
pal.
No, you never know what the White Claw is going to tell us to do.
You never know. You know what doesn't work for me, pal.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's wrap it up. I will not. I'm usually here doing the pay-per-view recaps. I will be in Florida with my family, so I'm not even sure if I'm able to watch Forbidden Door live, which is a shame.
I might be doing it. Got to talk to whoever.
We'll talk to the big man. Talk to Double G about it. But because of that, I'm glad I got to fill in tonight, even though circumstances for why weren't great. So, Emily, if you're listening, I hope you feel better.
We both hope that you are going to make all the positive progress that you need to in order to have a fulfilling future.
Yes. And so best wishes to her and Paul.
Best wishes to Paul and Anne for all the work that they've been doing. And
absolutely.
Sorry for all the money you lost, Jeff, but I hope that the memories made up for it.
That's right.
And if you want G1 analysis, you can join me tomorrow with my partner Stephen Conway on Speaking of Strong Style live on the Fight Game Media YouTube on June 20th, because tonight is June 19th, so that's June 20th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Fight Game Media channel. We're going to be talking all G1, what we think the play-in tournament's going to be, who could win, what the likelihoods are. It's a big one, guys, if you want to join us.
They haven't announced the cards yet, so we can't get into bracketology quite yet.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, they have.
Oh, they have? Okay.
It's
so
all
you've
out.
got all... Oh, great.
Like, they put it out on New Japan World, but the New Japan World website is terrible right now, so you can't find anything. Yeah. But the matches have all been announced all the way through.
Even past the play-ins?
Yes.
So, okay.
You know,
we know where the winners of those will go.
You know that the winner of the play-in tournament is facing Evil on the final night. I don't remember exactly, but there are significant matches in which these play-in matches are consequential all the way.
Okay.
So it's all
been
announced.
So tomorrow you're doing a little bracketology.
Tomorrow we're doing bracketology. We got 90 minutes. We'll be going over the New Japan Soul, and I had some fun with bracketology last year. Let's see if I can recreate the magic.
Yeah. you gotta be bold again. You gotta call.
I definitely have thought about some bold ones, and there's some stuff out there that you could read some tea leaves and maybe come to some conclusions that are pretty bold.
All right, looking forward to it. Hey, I'm just hanging out. I don't have any other things going on. I'm just sort of fill-in guy, pitch hitter on Fight Game right now.
You're way more valuable than that, and I hope you know that.
Well, I enjoy it. And so I'm not sure what will be popping up next, but reach out to me. Our handles there on the screen. Kevin Ely, Jeremy Finestone. Thanks, Jeff and Paul, for letting us fill in. And they will see you next week. Later.